Monza this weekend plays host to the first races in a new chapter of GT racing, the Fanatec GT2 European Series. GT2 is a brand name, if you like, that we have had in the past, but this is an all-new GT2. It is aimed at the gentleman racer, it is aimed at the AM, it is aimed at those that like big, powerful cars, but don't particularly want lots of aero. It's got the fun back into GT racing, and it is the first step on what Stefan Rattel is convinced is going to be a big success. And certainly yesterday's race, despite a moderately small grid, was a very lively one indeed, and we had some good battles, and it's going to grow and grow, that's for sure. There's a good mix of car, good mix of driver, and some interesting racing we can look forward to. Monza is pretty chilly this morning. Track temperature is low, and we've had one or two drivers in sessions running wide and kicking up the gravel. We've almost lost a car from this race, in fact, on the outlet, because one of the KTMs had a spin on the outlet, but thankfully he's been able to get to the grid in time, even though it had to go through the pit lane. Pit lane remained open, so that car onto the grid. Now, yesterday's race was won by the Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach Audi. This is a grid based on a separate qualifying session, and also today's race starts to take in a number of changes. Not only is it a different start driver, of course, also the pit stop time is different. It's been reviewed overnight, and 100 seconds rather than 80 is now the regulation time. But also, from this race on, you start to factor in success pit stops, if you like. So the top three carry an extra 10, 7 or 5 seconds on their pit stop coming into the next race. It's not cumulative, it's only for the following race. And that's in the two classes, the Pro-Am and the Am category. So it means that the car on pole position, Patrick Zamperini's Lamborghini, has an extra 10 seconds to serve in the pit stop. This is a car started by Adrian Speshka that has 7 because it was second in class yesterday, and the cars towards the rear of the grid, some of the KTMs that were third in their respective classes, they carry 5 seconds. So quite a lot is new. Also, you have in this race not only some of the regular brands of GT racing, like, for example, Audi, like Lamborghini, like Porsche, but also KTM, that has been regularly providing cars for GT4 and one-make events over the years. Some experienced drivers like Bert Langin and Michael Vergers, who are on the grid. So too, on the grid, doing the first stint in his Audi that he shares with Luca Piri, is Stefan Rattel. So the governor is clearly behind the GT2 concept, because he's got a car with which to go racing with his neighbour, Luca Piri. There it is, and yesterday at the first corner, Luca got involved with Bert Langin and ended up in the gravel, so Stefan didn't get to drive, but he will do so today, and will go first in the Audi R8 LM GTS GT2, which is sitting on the outside of the third row of the grid. The very charismatic Porsche is there of Aurelius Rustica, the Lithuanian driver, in its Martini hue. That's the car that he shares with Michael Vergers. And we'll go through the grid in a moment. As you see, yesterday's winning car, Mark Patterson, will go first today. Now, there is a drama, and that surrounds the Toro Verde Lamborghini that should be started by David Fairbrother, but the team remains on the grid, and the yellow flag waves. Now, in theory, all that team should have been off the grid by now, but the car's got an issue. The door is open. I can see some bodywork is lying on the ground as well. It's the cover for the front of the car, and now the team needs to go to work, but the grid should have been cleared at the 1-minute board, so the team with the officials there trying to work on the car still, and the team, the officials are saying no, it's got to be pushed off the grid. You can't try and work on it now because we've had the 1-minute board. The grid should have been cleared. Peter Daly, who is the race director, will possibly throw that one to the stewards and say, what do you want to do about it? Meantime, let's look at the grid. Patrick Zamperini starts from pole position. He is from the Am Cup, and alongside in number 24 is Chris Rosenberger, another of the Ams on the second row. Adrian Speshka lines up alongside Peter Gellings. Mark Patterson and Stefan Rattel share the third row of the grid. Row 4, Andreas Ruskia and hopefully David Fairbrother, with Hubert Trunkenpolz next, and Patrick Michelier's Ferrari 488 for company. Sedi Sarmini rounds out the grid, but the David Fairbrother Lamborghini is going to be the car with the question mark around it, because that hopefully has now been pushed into the pit lane, and we'll start from there, assuming it can start at all. So the cars then work their way up towards the second of the chicanes. As I say, it's a smallish grid, and there was an extra KTM that we saw in the qualifying sessions that didn't race, but even so, the commitment from the drivers and from the teams is solid, and all of these cars, of course, with the exception of the Ferrari, are purpose for GT2, all newly built for these regulations. The Ferrari is a bit of an upgrade, and that car, I think you can expect to be replaced by a GT2 machine in full time. Now the red flag is waving, the red flag on the formation lap, which makes me think that the Lamborghini must still be on the circuit. It is. Now the plot thickens here. It's almost as though the car can't be moved. And so a recovery vehicle is just, I should imagine, going to have to be the answer to get that out of harm's way. There it is. So yes, it's going to have to be lifted, but whatever the problem is, it has been enough to render that car immobile. It can't even be pushed. So the start aborted, and they will return to the grid, and whether the Lamborghini is going to be allowed to start at all, start from the pits, we'll wait and see, but it would be good if that car were able to take the start of the race, even though it is, if you like, the culprit for the delayed start. But of course, these are, if I say not professional teams, that is unfair. There are some professional teams running them, but they are running them for customers. These are gentlemen racers paying for their racing, and SRO has always looked after the customer. So I suspect if that car of David Fairbrother is able to start, it will be given the opportunity. He's out of the car as far as I'm aware, and the scrutineering team, as well as the Toro Verde team, looking at the car and trying to work out what can be done to get it up and running. But Peter Daly, the clerk of the race director, I should say, has to abort the start. Whether that's going to take any time off the race duration, we will wait and see. But right now, the cars making their way to the grid. Very curious, whatever the problem is for that Lamborghini, because of course it had driven to the grid, and there it remains. The race is going to be 47 minutes, I am told by race control. There is David Fairbrother walking away. And when we do get racing, because of this extra formation lap, 47 minutes it will be. Because not only, of course, do they not refuel, but there's also the rest of the timetable to factor in. So it's going to have to be a slightly reduced race duration. So the pace car, as it is, brings them round the parabolica, back up towards the grid, which hopefully will be clear. There's number 5, Aurelius Rustica, sharing with Michael Verkes. And as the field pulls into place, we'll have the grid formed up, and I think there is still the recovery work going on. Right, while the grid is sorted out, while we get set to go racing, let's have a look back at what happened yesterday in the first ever Fanatec GT2 European Series race. Anders Fjordbach was the man on pole position, but a good start by Michael Verkes from the outside of the second row, the black Porsche. That brought him into the mix, and in fact he actually got his nose in front, took the race lead as they went down to the first chicane into the Rettifilio. Behind though, Luca Piri braked late, got into the side of Bert Longin, turned him around, but with damage to the car, Luca Piri got no further than the second element of the Rettifilio. Plonked in the gravel, Michael Verkes went wide, going up through the Lesmo curves, and dropped from the lead to second, and then the safety car was deployed to get Luca Piri out of the gravel. The race went live once again. Joseph Colado's Lamborghini busy battling. Hans Stuck, double Le Mans winner, had a big spin coming out of the Variante Ascari and bounced off the barrier. That put him out of the race. Colado busy squabbling with the number 17 Hubert Trunkenpolt's Klaus Angerhofer KTM with that very distinctive front lifting bodywork as the pit stop cycle through. 80 seconds of the stops yesterday, but a bit of fuel put into the Porsche, which also contributed to a longer pit stop. Anders Fjordbach then dominated his stint. He gave way to Mark Patterson as Aurelius Rustica came up to try and get past Seti Salmini. The same true of Patrick Zamperini, but Zamperini was absolutely flying, and as Salmini had a big slide, that cost him time. Zamperini then made his move for second place. Battle raged on lower down. Peter Grellings, relative racing rookie, busy battling with Sedi Salmini, and the Jordan Witt, Dave Fairbrother Lamborghini, going strongly yesterday, involved in a battle as well. But it was Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach that took the win. Joseph Collado and Patrick Zamperini finishing in second place. Mark Patterson, 69 years of age, having enjoyed his stint behind the wheel. And as we look down onto the grid, you can see now that the number 9 Lamborghini has had to be lifted. It's been removed from the grid. So real shame that you come all this way, but the car, for whatever reason, lets the team down at the start of this second race and trying to piece all the evidence together. Whatever the problem was, couldn't even be pushed. It seized or jammed somehow, so it had to be lifted. So that car is now off the grid. Big shame. It would have been on the outside of the fourth row of the grid, and now that car heads back into the pit lane, and one fears that's the last we'll see of it. So it's a slightly smaller grid, therefore, but everybody in place. 47 minutes. The pit window remains unchanged, just a slightly shorter second element to the race, if you like. And there the officials talking to the teams, explaining what goes on now. But that Lamborghini needing to be lifted. And I understand from Gemma Scott down on the grid that it's that the brakes are seized on, so that's why it couldn't be pushed. They couldn't unjam them, and therefore how the problem has occurred, better brains will need to work out, but that's the outcome, that they couldn't release the brakes, therefore it couldn't be pushed off the track. It had to be lifted. So rather than start under a safety car, it has been decided to delay the start of the race but take 3 minutes off that. So the road is clear, and now that countdown can continue.
The race will be 47 minutes. Mandatory pit window will remain.
So 47 minutes, mandatory pit window remains. The voice you've just heard is Peter Daly, the race director for this, and also for British GT, the chairman of the British Racing and Sports Car Club, himself a very competitive Formula Ford 1600 racer. And his driving standards advisor, incidentally, for British GT is one Michael Vergans, who's on this grid. So woe betide Michael if he gets anything wrong in this. So they're looking down onto the grid. Number 24, Chris Rosenberger, on the outside of the front row, sharing that car with Hans Stuck, the legendary Formula 1 racer, Le Mans winner, touring car hero. And Stucky had a spin into the barrier yesterday, but that denied Chris Rosenberger a chance to drive. We'll see what he can do today as the countdown continues. 3 minutes on the board. So one more formation lap and then the race to get underway. 73 there, started today by Patrick Michelier. The Ferrari, as I say, it's not a true GT2 car, but it's been allowed in to allow the drivers to experience what this is all about, with a view to a GT2 Ferrari coming on stream in due course. Or indeed, they could choose another brand, I suppose, but adding to the variety on the grid. And it is effectively running as a GT2 car. It's not been farmed off into an invitation class or anything. It's been allowed to run to GT2 regulations for the rest of them. And that car starting on the penultimate row of the grid. Bert Langin, I mentioned in the context of race 1, he shares with Peter Guelinks, who's got limited racing experience, but Bert goes back to the FIA GT days of Vipers and Corvettes with Anthony Kumpen. And a very successful driver he was too, winning the Zolder 24 Hours, winning the Spa 24 Hours. Of late, he's raced in the NASCAR Whelen Series and occasional Bell Car outings, but Bert Langin was unlucky yesterday to get turned around at the first corner. But if he can keep out of trouble in his second stint, this time it will be, then he should be one to watch to see what progress can be made. And Peter Guelinks actually raced pretty well yesterday, considering his lack of experience. So he's another driver to keep an eye to. He will do the first stint today. So the countdown continues. The team's able to talk to their drivers. The SVC team in the background operating that pole-sitting sort of brawn-liveried Lamborghini that Joseph Collado shares with Patrick Zamperini. Both of them with experience of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. And that car on pole position, ready for 47 minutes now of this race. So engines fire, that means the 1 minute board has just been shown. The KTM teams all poised. Many of the drivers in these KTMs, these more powerful KTMs, have come out of the One Make Championship, the Crossbow Battle, for a variety of KTMs, be them closed GT4 spec cars or open top GT4 spec Supersport Lights cars. But this GT2 car, looking almost Group C-ish, but it's good that the grid isn't dominated purely by what you might call the big spenders of GT racing. And I'm sure as the series progresses. The next round is in a month's time, mid-May, Hockenheim. More and more drivers will be enticed, more and more of different brands will be on the grid, but Porsche with the 911 GT2, or indeed I suspect the 935 evocation could fit into this, represented Lamborghini too, and Audi, as you see, after the win yesterday. Audi one of the first, if not the first, to embrace Stefan Rattel's regulations. Right, there's the green flag being waved, so the car's now released. A chance to get some warmth into the Pirelli tyres, and it's Patrick Zamperini then who leads down towards the Rettifilio chicane then. So the Lamborghini, that must be said, in his hands yesterday, did a very, very good job indeed. Stormed its way in that second stint into contention, took the class win as well as second place overall. That car starting today on pole position. Patrick Zamperini for pole. Mark Patterson, though, the man that won yesterday, will be another of those drivers to watch, starting as he is on the third row. So what progress can be made from there? Number 16, KTM, Sadi Samini at the rear of the grid. Caught a big slide yesterday, but again, raced well. You've got to remember that many of these are of limited experience. 24 there, Chris Rosenberger in the True Racing by Reiter Engineering car, making his way now up to the start of this slightly shorter race, 47 minutes. But Chris Rosenberger denied the chance to drive yesterday. Let's see what he can do. Adrian Speshka is another of the KTM drivers. So for 47 minutes, mandatory pit stops. 2 drivers per car, of course. Peter Gwellinks will start this Audi 81, the PK Car Sport entry. Bert Longin to take over. And it's another exciting shape, the GT2 Audi. So the manufacturers building these turnkey cars for customers, bags of power, limited aero. Mark Patterson for High Class Racing starts today. Mark, who's been racing for many seasons, largely, although he's South African born, largely in America, but came across to more European racing a decade or so ago, raced in British GT for United Autosports, has raced in the Endurance Cup, has raced in IMSA, both in GT and Sports Prototype, so hugely experienced driver is Mark Patterson. But now turning his attention to these GT2 cars, Stefan Rattel, who's of course not just the promoter of almost every Series GT Championship going, but a great enthusiast for his racing. He's raced in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, in the GT Sports Club, in the GT90s, in French GT, the global GT that he created, and of course at Le Mans, raced his Venturi at Le Mans back in 1994, and it's good that Stefan is on track. Apparently he was the first driver of the weekend to be reported to the stewards for crossing the pit exit white line, but he held his hands up and said, yeah, it was my mistake. I think Peter Daly was rather nervous that his career as a race director for SRO was going to be a short one, but Stefan took it all in good part and accepted his mistake, and no doubt he's looking forward to a race today because he never got behind the wheel in the race yesterday because of the dramas at the first corner. So, race 2 of the weekend for the Fanatec GT2 European Series is about to get underway. The delayed start meaning that we're running a little bit behind, but the cars for this shorter 47-minute race now come down to the Parabolica, and in a moment will be released then into battle with Patrick Zamperini on pole position, with Chris Rosenberger alongside him in the KTM. That's second row of Adrian Speshka and Peter Gwellinks. And keep an eye on that black Porsche as well, with the Martini stripes across the top of it, of Aurelius Rustica. So the cars now accelerate up towards the timing line. They need to be in that good order of 2x2 side-by-side formation. And Patrick Zamperini straight away into the pit lane. So in he comes with a little bit of smoke possibly from the back of the car. So from pole position, Zamperini down the pit road. Interesting. So the race gets underway now, and who is going to make the best of the starts then? It is a good getaway by Chris Rosenberger, being chased by Peter Gwellinks as the cars accelerate down towards the Rettifilio for the first time. Zamparini goes to his team, possibly therefore with a problem in the pit lane, as being squeezed onto the grass. There is the Audi, and that, by the look of it, is Peter Gwellinck. So it was a decent enough start, but then he had to try and avoid all the foliage. He did so as Aurelius Rustica and Stefan Rattel go side by side. Stefan on the outside line, Aurelius on the inside line there in the Porsche. But it's a KTM 1-2 at the moment with Adrian Spechka up in a second place. Rosenberger leads then. Spechka second, Gwellinck is third, Rustica versus Rattel for fourth and fifth, and a change for the leader. Spechka goes second, but then loses out because Rosenberger outbrakes him coming into the Variante della Roggia. He goes through there. Spechka drops down into second place. Gwellinck runs third then as the cars accelerate their way into the first of the two Lesmos, and there, from the pits, goes Zamparini. So he's given himself a lot of work to do. Now, what all that was about, we'll try and unravel. But the pole position car then, with now a huge amount of work to do. It's into the race, but a long way back, about half a lap adrift as the leaders come nose to tail, and at the moment it's a KTM 1-2 then. So Chris Rosenberger just ahead of Adrian Spechka in the black KTM as they come up then underneath the banking from the oval circuit into the Variante Ascari. A look to the inside by Adrian Spechka, but to no avail. Can't find a way through there. Turns through the left, the right, the left again on this opening lap of 47 minutes of racing. Gwellinck is third, Rustica is in fourth place, Rattel is fifth, sixth is Patterson then, yesterday's race winner, and that car not yet at least storming through the order, so it's going to be interesting to see whether it does make further progress from there. Now Zamparini, as you see the leaders go side by side into the Parabolica. On the inside line then is the car of Adrian Spechka, and he goes through into the race lead. Rosenberger though has been pretty good at fighting back, and he will come off the Parabolica on the outside line. So as they come over the timing line, is he going to fight back? He's trying to, but no, Spechka will just get his nose in front as they head now down to the Rettifilio. Rosenberger on the outside line will brake as late as he possibly dares. Spechka with his nose in front is on the wrong line really. He couldn't come across and defend, so round the outside goes Chris Rosenberger, and he takes back the race lead. Great fight between these two, with Peter Gwellinck also doing a good job in the Audi, staying with them in third place. Now to go back to the point I was just starting, Zamparini from pole, as we saw, had to start from the pit lane, but also he has got in his pit stop an extra 10 seconds to make, so whatever charge he does is then slightly compromised anyway by that longer pit stop as the race leaders, and it's almost four in a queue now, come into the Variante della Roggia. Adrian Spechka to the inside line, but Rosenberger is able to fend him off again. Peter Gwellink's on his toes, has a look up the inside, can't find a way past the KTM there, however, as the cars now head into Lesmo 1. Peter Gwellink's onto the power, sprinting his way up into the second of those right-handed Lesmo curves, and as they turn through, Rosenberger unable for the moment at least to shake off Adrian Spechka. Nose to tail, the two KTMs. Spechka giving the thought that if he were able to get by, he might be able to pull clear, but Chris Rosenberger thwarting his every effort, and Peter Gwellinck is staying with them as well in that third place now as they come through. Zamparini, a man on a mission, down in 10th place, trying to play catch-up. He's not yet really joined the queue of cars at the back. Replay of the start, you see that little whiff of smoke coming from underneath Zamparini's Lamborghini, so aware of some issue maybe, but the race then without him getting underway, and it was a good start not only by Chris Rosenberger but also by Aurelius Rustica. Mark Patterson dropping back a little bit into the clutches of, on one side of him, Rustica, on the other side of him, Rattel, and so as they got to the Rettifilio chicane, Chris Rosenberger in the lead, but look, as Spechka moves across the road, that squeezes Peter Gwellinck onto the grass. He was able to slow the car down in the nick of time, but that was a bit of a scare for him, and almost a repeat of yesterday for 81, being involved in strife at the first corner. That's the race leader, that's Chris Rosenberger. 2 laps are done. And in second spot, Adrian Spechka is the man doing the chasing, 7/10 of a second. Peter Gwellinck is third, there fourth Rustica, fifth Stefan Rattel, sixth Mark Patterson, still not really closing, and Zamparini is back into the pit lane. So any charge that was going to come from the pole man, I'm afraid to say, is not, and there is the car, and it's looking ever more terminal. So whatever it is, I'm afraid to say, that car is hobbled again, and it's effectively out of the race now, because with 2 pit stops already, starting for the pits and a pit stop, plus the regulation pit stop, it's going to be so far back, even if it does go back out again. So really, really disappointing that. For the race lead, though, it could barely be closer. And look, it's not just the 2 KTMs, because very definitely now, Peter Gwellinck in the Audi in third place is running with them. heading up towards the Variante Ascari once more. This is lap 3. Aurelius Rustica in 4th place. Not quite as close to Gwellings as he needs to be, but he's not falling away too much. Stefan Rattel is still there in 5th place, and so the leaders come through the Ascari chicane. Lap number 3, and the run now down towards the Parabolica. Chris Rosenberger so far has done the fastest lap of the race. And the field turning down towards the Parabolica once more. In the background, Mark Patterson still chasing on to catch Rattel. To the inside line for the lead goes Adrian Speska. Tries to squeeze up alongside Chris Rosenberger, but to no avail. That was not going to work for him, and he has to slot back in behind as they turn now onto the pit straight once more. So this lead battle continues. And actually, the Audi falls away, doesn't it, in 3rd place. Gwellings a little bit further back than he needed to be. Having said that, he's just done the fastest lap of the race. To the inside line goes Adrian Speska, lines up for the lead. He's got to brake late, and even if he does so, is he going to be able to make the corner? He thinks better of it, slots back in behind. So, as they round the Rettifilio for the 4th time, it is Chris Rosenberger up front. He may not have been able to drive yesterday because of the incident for Hans Stuck, but he's going really strongly now, and he powers on through the Curva Grande. There in 3rd place, Peter Gwellings, then with the fastest lap to his name right now. So the cars flick their way out of the Variante della Roggia. And onto the power in a moment, into the Lesmos they will come, but Peter Gwellings runs 3rd then. Impressive the way that he's done that fastest lap, impressive that with limited experience he's staying with the 2 cars ahead of him. Done some 24-hour series races, but still adapting to this car, of course. For many, it's a real step into the unknown. Limited testing, the first brace of races for this new breed of GT car, so everybody adapting, and Adrian Speska is adapting very nicely indeed as he comes now then down towards the Variante Ascari. Adrian, who's raced in the European Touring Car Championship in its recent iteration in a Seat, goes right round the outside, bags the race lead with a great move. That sort of came out of nowhere, really, but he hung it out on the outside and the road came to him, so Adrian Speska goes through at a place where you don't really anticipate overtaking, certainly for the race lead to happen, and Chris Rosenberger possibly caught on the back foot a little bit, tries to retaliate, and he does, and he goes back through at the Parabolica, but he's going to go deep into the corner. Can he get it slowed down? And he does, and he turns in to the inside line. Now then goes Adrian Speska. So the Belgian Endurance Championship racer in the black KTM, briefly the leader with a great move, but Rosenberger, having fought back, fends him off as they come over the line. Down now towards the Rettifilio. Peter Gwellings is still there in 3rd place, and Speska has another look to the inside line. Another of the KTMs, by the way, that of Sedi Samini, is now the fastest in the race. That's done the fastest lap as the leading 2, almost 3, come out of the Rettifilio. 39 minutes and counting. What's going on for 4th? It's still Aurelius Rustica in the Porsche. 5th is the Audi of Stefan Rattel. Chris Rosenberger has done the fastest top speed of anybody, as you see in a straight line, 277.6 as the VMAX speed in the race, and nose to tail the 2 KTMs once more up towards the Variante della Roggia. To the inside for the race lead, Adrian Speska, but the door is closed just in the nick of time there by Chris Rosenberger, so he's able to maintain the advantage for the moment. Interesting though that despite all of this squabbling, Gwellings has not quite been able to make a proper move for position. He's staying with them. Now maybe this is all part of the plan. Stay there and let Bert Langevin do the hard driving in the next stint, but Gwellings there or thereabouts, but not really yet pushing for position. In turn, he's managing to fend off any challenge from Aurelius Rustica. Stefan Rattel is there in 5th place, almost, again, on the tail of the Porsche, in the same way that Rustica is almost on the back of Gwellings. So just another couple of tenths to be found. Mark Patterson has lost a place, down in 7th spot now. So there, Sedi Samini goes through. And Mark Patterson falling away. He had, by his own admission, a pretty easy time of it in the second stint yesterday. Rosenberger on the defensive to keep Speska behind him as they come into the Parabolica, and as they come nose to tail out of the right-hander. A little bit wider runs Rosenberger than does Speska. Up past the pits they now come. The margin has widened again between the KTMs and that Audi in 3rd place of Peter Gwellings. Aurelius Rustica 4th as again Speska gets on his toes there, trying to find a way up past the race leader coming down towards the Rettifilio chicane. It doesn't pay out for him, so through they turn once again. So the leaders go through. This is lap 6, 36 minutes plus are on the clock. Chris Rosenberger now has got the fastest lap of the race back as he tries to pull clear of Adrian Spechka, but these two cars very evenly matched. Second and third on the grid, 1 and 2 in the race. So Chris Rosenberger has the advantage, but barely a length in it at the moment. In third place, Peter Gwellings, possibly on this lap, having dropped away a little, is actually being caught slightly by Aurelius Rusica. Spechka goes for the inside line at the second Lesmo bend, thinks better of it, slots back in behind. A little bit of a twitch from the number 7 KTM as it rides the curve, presses on now. Look back, the gap is certainly widening as Peter Gwellings drops away in third place, and now possibly he has to start thinking more about defending from Aurelius Rusica behind him. The Lithuanian driver in the Porsche, moving around in the mirrors there, trying to distract Gwellings, who turns now into the Variante Ascari. Stefan Rattel hanging on to 5th place, but Sergei Samini closing on him now in 6th place. Stefan's last lap was a 53.4. Samini briefly had done the best lap of the race earlier on, so that could be a gap to monitor as we get closer to the pit stop window. To the inside line though now goes the number 7 KTM, so Spechka looks for a way by, can't do it. Rosenberger fends him off, but Chris Rosenberger runs wide coming off the corner. Is that going to compromise him? No, able to control it all, maintain the advantage at least onto the pit straight. Nose to tail again. Now this time Spechka does do what he's been wanting to do for a few laps, go to the outside line, which is the perfect line into the Rettifilio. It also means that with the late braking, Rosenberger is offline. Turns in ahead, does he? Yes. Is there going to be contact? Very nearly. Spechka is the one that gets run out over the rumble strips and is therefore delayed as a consequence. So he made his move, but good solid defence by Rosenberger keeps him up front as the cars now accelerate again into the Curva Grande. But while all that has been going on, has Peter Gwellings caught back up a little bit, only by a length maybe, taking Aurelius Rusica with him. And then in the background, Stefan Rattel in 5th. He will give way to Luca Piri on the pit stops. Rusica to Michael Verkers and Peter Gwellings to Bert Longchamp. Experienced GT racers all, so going to be interesting to see what pans out in that second stint. Stefan Rattel to Sergei Samini is 1.6 seconds. New fastest lap of the race now to Adrian Spechka. You're looking at Aurelius Rusica in 4th place. So the Porsche in the Martini colours, glasses on. Remember the pit stop's 100 seconds today, and there's the extra success time, so an extra 7 seconds to be served by number 7. There it is. Adrian Spechka for yesterday, 10 seconds by Mark Patterson. Now, Mark Patterson is already nearly 10 seconds adrift of the leader, with a further 10 to lose in the pit stop. So his race might be unravelling a little bit here unless he can salvage some time back, and suddenly the gap 3rd or 4th has come right down, as it has for the race lead. Spechka once again on his toes to have a go at Rosenberg, but have a look at Rusica in the Porsche, because he's much closer to Peter Gwellings now in the Audi. The leaders come once more up towards the timing line, through they turn. Last lap Spechka with the fastest lap of the race this time around, let's see, goes through a little bit slower, and it is Rosenberger fractionally the faster of those two. Gwellings runs in 3rd place. 4th is Rusica, and the two KTMs absolutely nose to tail as they break now for the Rettifilio. There is the 3rd, 4th, almost 5th battle. Stefan Rattel trying to close as these two now delay one another, starting to squabble. So the race leaders head through the right-hander of the Curva Grande up towards the Variante della Roggia, and Spechka attacked, gets all squirrely under braking. He's not going to make the corner, surely. He does not, and Rosenberger didn't make it either. His braking was very, very late as well, so both of them go off the road, and Spechka one up and one down as a consequence of all of that. He took to the escape road, and Rosenberger braked as late as he dared, and then realised he wasn't going to make the corner either. So great battle between these two KTM drivers. 3rd and 4th and 5th. Yes, it is bunching up now, look. So you've got Gwellings ahead of Rusica, ahead of Rattel, and the gap between them all is coming down. So Stefan has really closed back in the last lap and a half or so, really. What had become a reasonable sized gap has been hacked away. He did his personal best lap last time at 1:52.912, and he's done a personal best in the first sector of this lap. So all of a sudden this car has become well hooked up. Another personal best for Stefan Rattel in the middle sector, and not only is it a personal best, it's half a second quicker than the equivalent sector time of Aurelius Rustica just up the road ahead of him. So now the 5th placed Audi, as we head towards the pit stops, is getting quicker and quicker and quicker. The gap is coming down and down and down. Aurelius Rustica right there on the tail of Gellings as they come into the Parabolica once more. Up towards the line, they accelerate now. Can Rustica make his move for 3rd before he has to start defending 4th against Stefan Rattel? Past the pits go the leading KTMs, and it is still Rosenberger ahead of Spechka by half a second. Look in the background, because actually not only is the fight for 3rd, 4th, 5th getting all Larry, it's also closing on the KTMs. Rustica has a look, but that was never going to work. It was more in hope than in anticipation, that I think, and it's also brought Rattel even closer to the back of him. They power out of the chicane. So the 2 leading cars separated by half a second. Chris Rosenberger last time did another new fastest lap of the race. Adrian Spechka behind him. Stefan Rattel goes through then. Another personal best lap last time. 3 personal bests in the sectors. So whatever was causing him to lose time at the start is no longer an issue, because the number 88 Audi charging along and closing onto the tail of the Porsche. Now into the second of the Lesmo bends, and while Aurelius Rustica has to think about defending, that just takes the pressure off Peter Gellings. Look, suddenly that gap 3rd to 4th has really opened up markedly. Race leaders work their way into the Variante Ascari once more, getting closer to the pit window, of course. And was that a squeal of tyres? It might just have been the KTMs running wide. It was a moment for Spechka, look, because they're in the background. He's been off the road, and it means that now up into 2nd place goes Gellings, up into 3rd place goes Rustica, and about to go 4th round the outside is Stefan Rattel as they drop down to the Parabolica. So Adrian Spechka, unseen, has had a moment, and it's cost him pretty much everything, because he's no longer fighting for the race lead. He's going to be down in 5th. This is what happened then. So yes, a big lose coming out of the Variante Ascari, goes right the way around, and as a consequence of that has to hook a low gear, get going again, and he's down in 5th, but he's on his toes because he comes back to challenge Rattel as they drop to the Rettifilio. He's on the inside line. No, not going to make it through there. So 5th is the net result of the spin for Adrian Spechka. He will give that car over to Christoph Ulrich, another experienced driver from Sports Club from the Michelin Le Mans Cup, but right now biding his time in the pit lane, ready to take over this car. So there you've got number 7, Adrian Spechka, accelerating his way up towards the Lesmo bends, and in turn, while he's trying to find a way back ahead of Stefan Rattel, he's also clear, for the moment at least, of Sedi Sarmini. Mark Patterson in 7th place, now 12.6 seconds back. Make that 22 seconds in a sense, because of the 10 seconds he will have to serve extra for yesterday's win in the pit lane. So Anders Fjordbach is going to have quite a lot of work to do, but it'll make the second stint very interesting, partly because it's a jumbled order, and partly because it's a shorter second stint, with the race duration now being 47 minutes rather than the planned for 50. So they're the KTMs through together. Sorry, the Audi and the KTM through together. Adrian Spechka on the back of 88 Audi that Luca Piri will take over from Stefan Rattel shortly, and Chris Rosenberger, now that the pressure is taken off him, in theory should be storming away, but actually his sector times are no better than they were when he was battling. Adrian Spechka again tries to challenge on the inside line into the Parabolica, goes through, gets ahead of Stefan, so Adrian Spechka goes ahead. Rattel drops down into 5th place therefore, and the pit window is not that far away now. Race leaders go by, and the lead margin 3.2 seconds. That last lap of Peter Gellings quicker than it was of Chris Rosenberger, so the gap down a little bit between the top 2. And then number 7, Adrian Spechka, then into 4th place. What can he do from there? So Spechka trying to close now onto the back of Aurelius Rustica. Chris Rosenberger still leads, and in the first sector is being caught again by Peter Gelling. So it's almost as though battling with number 7 KTM was inspiring Chris on a little bit, whereas now he doesn't have anyone to battle against. He's not having to drive with quite so much urgency, but the gap is only 3.2 seconds, and he's been coming down in sectors. There for 3rd and 4th place, Aurelius Rustica just ahead of Adrian Speshka. They had a good fight on track yesterday. Now continuing it into this second race of the weekend. Stefan Rattel there in 5th position. The pit window is now open, by the way, so stops can come. Depends really whether you've got your quicker driver in first or not, and in most cases I suspect not. So you have many of the cars in early to get the faster driver in, but it's been a very good first part of the race, that's for sure. Got a feel for Patrick Zamperini, got a feel for David Fairbrother, the 2 Lamborghinis. Both having problems, neither really being able to get into the race. So, down to the Parabolica. Do we have any of those leading drivers set to dive into the pit lane this time? Chris Rosenberger will give way to Hans-Joachim Stuck. And the line that they take suggests that most are coming in. Rosenberger stays out, but Gelinks is in. Also, Rustica comes in, Speshka comes in, so Stefan Rattel. The car looked like it was about to go for the pit lane, and then Stefan saw the queue of traffic and thought, I'd better go around once more, but he stays out anyway. 2nd place he has now become. And who else comes in? Sedi Sarmini will be in, Mark Patterson will be in, and I think also 17, the KTM of Hubert Trunkenpolz is set for the pit lane. Yes, it is. The Ferrari of Patrick Machelier stays out. So the majority into the pit lane. Right, Peter Guelinks out of his Audi, into which gets Bert Longchamp. And there, Chris Rosenberger accelerating out of the Variante della Roggia. The car ran by Hans Reiter's team. For many years associated with Lamborghinis, of course, in the GT race championships around the globe. But these days, Hans Reiter concentrating on running these KTMs. And for a motorbike manufacturer, on the KTM GT4 spec and Supersport spec cars sold great guns for the one-make championship that runs in Eastern Europe, and now this GT2 car that's certainly become a big hit this weekend. Stefan Rattel in the LP Racing, Luca Piri Racing Audi, running in 2nd place. And there you see the pit stops all being served. 100 seconds they must be. That car, however, has to serve an extra 7. Away goes Peter Guelling's car, now with Bert Longchamp at the wheel. Now that didn't have to serve any extra time, and yet doesn't get out much ahead of number 7 KTM. So let us see. The pit stop times are revealed to make sure that everything is adhered to. I would offer you that Adrian Speshka, now Christoph Ulrich, stopped for 104 seconds rather than 110, which he should have done with the, 107 with the extra penalty. So I fear number 7's pit stop might be a little bit short. However, we'll wait and see what the officials rule upon, because they get the pit stop times offered up by the timing service, Swiss Timing. So it is now the Chris Rosenberger, yet to be Hans Stuck KTM, that leads. And there, look, has arrived with Adrian Speshka's car. Now Christoph Ulrich at the wheel, with it on the track once again. But this time it is Christoph Ulrich behind the wheel. It's a servant's pit stop, and it is effectively a lap down, but it will get that lap back when 24 KTM pits. And a big, big slide for Chris Rosenberger there. Came out of nowhere. You'd have thought the tyres were nice and warm by now. Suddenly the car snapped away. That was a good save. That might herald Chris Rosenberger to the pits pretty soon. Stefan Rattel is in, Patrick Machelier is in as well. So there you have got, coming towards us, Bert Longchamp. That is the car that Luca Piri will take over. Stefan in the background is out of the car. I think he enjoyed that stint. So 24, Chris Rosenberger is effectively now the only man yet to serve a pit stop, so he's got to come in this time. And he's being charged along behind by Michael Vergers in the number 5 Porsche, as away goes Luca Piri. So Vergers goes through, round the outside line. And Chris Rosenberger is coming in and has slowed down quite early, suggesting that that car might have a problem. which might account for why it had that big slide all of a sudden. But for an in-lap, Chris Rosenberger was coming in very, very slowly, relatively speaking. So I'm intrigued to know what all that is about. As there, Bert Longchamp goes ahead of Luca Piri. After yesterday's tangle, he probably feels that's a good place to be, but he goes ahead of him as they come down towards the Rettifilio. 22 minutes are on the clock. That's the lead car. Chris Rosenberger's KTM comes in. 70-year-old Hans Stuck is ready to take over, but I wonder whether it's going to go back out again. It's come in so slowly. Is there a problem? One problem is they can't get the door open, or that whole bodywork to lift up. They have got 100 seconds, of course, in order to do this pit stop. It doesn't have to be frantic. And who's this going to put into the lead of the race? Well, it should now be this man, Bert Longchamp, in 81, ahead of 88 Luca Piri. So that is Chris Rosenberger giving way to Hans Stuck, but there's concern from the team, clearly, as to something around that car. Now, Michael Verkers has just done the absolute best first sector in the black Porsche in the background. So this lead situation now is Bert Longchamp ahead of, behind him, the Luca Piri Audi. Then there is Christoph Ulrich, then there is Michael Verkers. But where these four feed in relative to Hans Stuck, if and when the KTM rejoins, we'll have to wait and see. They're coming into the Parabolica then. So, number 24, still in the pits, might have a problem. There is still work going on. So that car is set, I fear, to drop down. It was a slow in-lap anyway. Now these cars have all got quick drivers in them anyhow. Up towards the timing line they will come, and at the end of the lap, number 24 is still there and not yet ready to leave. So problems for the car that did lead the race, problems equally for the car that started on pole position. So now it is Bert Longchamp in the lead. In second place is Luca Piri, third is Christoph Ulrich, and fourth is Michael Verkers as the cars start lap 14, 20 minutes to go. Number 24 KTM still in the pits, so it's effectively out of it now. But the other driver to watch is becoming 33 Anders Fjordbach, because straight away he's done the fastest lap of the race. Is that 24 on its way finally down the pit lane? It is. So Hans Stuck joins in, but a bad delay for that car. It gets away, and so now the drivers work lap number 14 in this new order of Bert Longchamp ahead of Luca Piri. There he is, and there in third place Christoph Ulrich in number 7 KTM. Now what about Michael Verkers behind him, because he was looking quick in sectors. He is still looking quick in sectors, but he's not got close enough yet to make a move for position. So the field turning its way out of the Variante Ascari. Got two cars under investigation for their pit lane speed, they being 16 and 17, Klaus Angelhofer and Stefan Rossina, the two drivers in the cars now. Rossina took over from Serhi Sarmini, and Klaus Angelhofer took over from Hubert Trunkenpolz. So this is the fight for second,
16
third,
and car 17 drive-through penalty for pit lane speeding.
So drive-through penalty for pit lane speeding, says Peter Daly. So drive-through penalty for 16 and 17. As way out wide goes Michael Verkers there, coming off the Parabolica. So drive-through penalty confirmed. Pit lane speeding it was. So it is Longchamp now 2.6 seconds to the good from this fight for second place. Piri ahead of Ulrich, ahead of Verkers behind him. So the race lead battle continues, and is Bert Longchamp going to be caught? Luca Piri getting away a little bit now from Adrian Spechka, because he in turn is having to defend from Michael Verkers, who goes through. I don't mean Spechka, I mean Christoph Ulrich, who loses the place because through goes number 5 Porsche. Michael Verkers then goes through on the inside line. Christoph Ulrich drops back into 4th position. Right, so Verger released. Is he going to be able to go now after Luca Piri? Can that Porsche ultimately lap quicker than the race leading Audi? Well, first of all, Michael Verkers needs to get away from Christoph Ulrich, who is on his toes trying to fight back. Fastest lap of the race, Anders Fjordbach once more. So that's another gap that has come down. as Fjordbach closes up onto the traffic ahead, but it is a tall order this to get back into contention. Not only was time being lost in the first stint, but also the extra 10 seconds in the pits have gone against yesterday's winners. 14.5 seconds away from the lead, currently he is. So Bert Langevin accelerates down to the Parabolica once more. Look back behind, you can see the Porsche with the wipers on, curiously. Michael Vergers, in all the efforts of this lap, he's not the wipers on. And those cars now turn again through the Parabolica, making the run now up into the approach to the start and finish line. So Bert Langevin will go through. Past the pits they go, into the Rettifilio chicane now, and it is Bert Langevin by 2 seconds from Luca Piri, and that means that last time Luca Piri got closer, the gap is coming down therefore between first and second. There is Michael Vergers still pressing on behind as well. News from the pits is that the KTM squad around number 4 accepting that they'd lost a little bit of pace, but not being able to either find or at least not owning up to a major issue. Another fastest lap, Anders Fjordbach now, who has done a 1:49.538. As the race leaders currently work lap number 16. We have the Bert Langevin Audi ahead by 2 seconds from Luca Piri, but Piri is charging, no question about it. So that car has come into contention really in this second stint. Vergers up into third place as we had seen, and now he sets off in pursuit of Piri. So 4.5 seconds cover the top 3. Battle lower down as well as Anders Fjordbach goes through, and Stefan Rossina comes in to serve the drive-through penalty then, because Sedi Sarmini and Stefan Rossina are one of the 2 driver combinations that have copped for that. Down the pit road comes Sarmini. And there is Luca Piri then, running in second place. Now he's dropped to 10th relative to Bert Langevin, and Michael Vergers behind is close, but not close enough yet to make a move. 14 minutes remain. Race leaders go through lap 17. So Bert Langevin, the race leader then, in this car that started from 4th on the grid. There it is, the PK Car Sport entry. Very, very experienced driver is Bert Langevin. And he comes then now down through the Parabolica. How many more laps can he squeeze out? Still 13 more minutes of the race, so got time enough. Goes now over the line once more. Accelerates down towards the Rettifilio chicane. 2 seconds is the margin, Langevin to Piri. And in third place, Michael Vergers, who is lapping quicker than either of the 2 drivers ahead of him. So 3.3 seconds covers the top 3. Little by little, it is still concertinaing, so Vergers could gain 1 place, might even be able to gain 2 before the end of the race here. 4th is Christoph Ulrich, 5th Anders Fjordbach. Now, Fjordbach is only 10 seconds away, and his pace is better than anybody's because he's lapping in the 49. So Fjordbach still also has the chance of gaining ground before the end. There is 88, that is Luca Piri turning through. As the cars now make the run up through the approach to the Variante Ascari in the first sector. Michael Berger's 4 tenths up on Piri, 3 tenths up on the race leading car, so it is still bunching up for the race lead. There you can see the Porsche hustling on. Michael Berger's then second in the Formula 4 Festival, winner of the RAC British Formula 4 Championship going back to, what, 1990. Class winner in LMP2 in the Le Mans Series. He's raced in pretty much everything you can possibly think of, whether it's a GT car or a sports prototype. Class winner in the Le Mans Series in LMP2. He's raced NASCAR, or at least the British equivalent, ASCAR, around the Rockingham Oval. And very, very accomplished driver. He's about to emerge from the parabolica, heading up towards the timing line. There, going through ahead of him, is the race leader Bert Longchamp. Let's see what that lap time is like from Bert Longchamp, because as he goes through, that lap is a 50.7. That's Bert's best lap so far. So Bert Longchamp trying to stretch the margin, 2.2 seconds over Luca Piri, who does a 50.9, and a 50.8 Michael Berger. So he's dropped back a little bit. And number 7 is under investigation for a short pit stop, Adrian Speshka, and so also number 73, the Ferrari of Patrick Mechelier, now Alexis Berthet. Which did a 90 seconds by the look of it, rather than 100 seconds of the pit stop. So that was short as well. So those are being looked at as Vergas gets closer and closer to Luca Piri. Both rattle over the curb as they come now out of the Roger chicane. So they're going through is the race lead trio: Bert Longchamp, Luca Piri, Michael Vergas, up into 4th place. Anders Fjordbach there, just catching a glimpse of the background. So Fjordbach has got ahead of Ulrich now as well, with this Dan McLeishan investigation over KTM number 7 also, which might go against Christoph Ulrich. So the race leaders, with less than 10 minutes to go, come onto this straight down to the parabolica. You can see the way that Fjordbach in the background is absolutely flying now, hurling the car around. He is 8.7 seconds off the race lead, 5 seconds away from that battle pack for the race lead. Fjordbach is the man with the best lap of the race last time, a 49.5 to his credit. Christoph Ulrich turns through. So with 9 minutes to go, the race leader goes by. 2 seconds it is between Longchamp and Piri, and then 8 tenths between these two, Luca Piri and Michael Vergas, as they come through the Rettifilio chicane. Vergas on the back of the Audi now. So that car that was, for the early part of it, Luca Piri's Audi with Stefan Rattel at the wheel in 5th place, helped of course by not having any extra time to spend in the pits, whereas others did, be it 10 or 7 or 5 seconds based on yesterday's result. But now Luca Piri is having to go defensive.
Car 73, 10-second stop-go penalty, short pit stop.
So 73, as you hear from Peter Daly, 10-second stop-go penalty for a short pit stop. Hans Stuck in the meantime, by the way, after that slow stop for the car that led the first part of the race, up into 7th place now. Vergas was on the back of Piri a moment ago, but has lost out. The Porsche, as we saw yesterday, does seem to have its strengths and weaknesses around this circuit. Certain parts it's able to use all of the grunt and get very close, but then around other elements of the circuit, maybe a lack of aero, who knows, it drops away. But the car certainly has not been able to stay on the back of the Audi right now as they come up into the Variante Ascari once more. So the 3 race leaders then, with 7 3/4 minutes to go, accelerate towards us once more. Now is this a part?
Number 7, car 7, 3 seconds stop go. Short pit stop.
And confirmation also, as you hear, number 7, which I'd identified at the time as being short on the pit stop, has to have a 3-second stop-go to make up the difference, really. So a 3-second stop-go penalty for number 7, Christoph Ulrich, at the wheel of it. So the order is going to shuffle again round 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th places. Leaders go through 1.8 seconds covering the top 3. 4th is Anders Fjordbach, who's now into the low 49s as he does another fastest lap of the race. So with 7 minutes and counting, cars storm on. And in the AM class now, it is going to put Hans Stuck into the lead, is it not? Because once Christoph Ulrich serves that stop-go penalty, Hans Stuck's going to take over the class lead. Having won here in the Group C days in Rothmann's Porsches in 1986, which was possibly the last race victory he scored at Monza. However, a class win beckons now for Hans Stuck, making amends for yesterday. So there is Michael Vergers, who, having got close to Luca Piri, as we've seen, has fallen back a little bit. That releases Luca Piri, and he sets off in pursuit of Bert Longchamp, quicker in sector 1, and his last lap was 3/10 quicker anyway. So the gap, first to second, coming down once again. Field accelerates for the 21st time down towards the Parabolica. There is Hans Stuck, running in 7th place, coming into the Rogier chicane. So the double Le Mans winner presses on. Now number 73 Ferrari has just left the pits after serving its stop and go. Number 7 Christoph Ulrich has yet to do so. Yet to serve the stop-go penalties. You see Hans Stuck go through. There's the Ferrari back out again, just ahead of the race leaders, who will come through 5.5 minutes on the clock down towards the Retefilio chicane. Bert Longchamp now moves across the road, sets up for the line for the corner. This Audi 1-2, Porsche 3rd. Oh so distinctive Audi engine notes as they accelerate up through the gears. So number 5, Michael Vergers, once more trying to bring down that gap, and he has done so in the first sector because he's quicker than the 2 Audis ahead of him. So it does seem that the Porsche is good through the first sector of the lap. Now let's see whether it can stay in touch through the Lesmo bends. The gap to the eye opens up, and again the car almost snaps away. That's what happened to Michael Vergers on the first lap of the race yesterday. He sort of ran out wide there, seemed to lose the bite for the corner, and it's done it again. And it does seem to be that section of the circuit where the car loses time over the course of a lap. It can make it up elsewhere, but it's not able to maintain the line through those 2 corners at the back part of the circuit. So Vergers now got to do the hard yards again in the Pro-Am class Porsche, heading up towards the Ascari chicane, with here Anders Fjordbach's Audi also charging now. 3 Audis in the top 4. Can he catch and pass Vergers before the end? Only 4 more minutes are on the clock, of course. So Bert Longchamp heads down towards the Parabolica. Fjordbach, quicker than anybody, lap after lap after lap, comes through. But might have to think about lappery soon, because there you can see is Alexis Berthet in the Ferrari just up the road as Bert Longchamp goes through. 2 Audis then, still first and second. The gap is down again to 1.3 seconds. Little by little, lap by lap, the gaps come down. There, number 5 Porsche, Michael Vergers, goes through. Now his last lap was a 1 minute 50.9, so falling away. Anders Fjordbach still lapping quicker than anybody in the race, and he's now 5.6 seconds behind the leader, 2.3 seconds behind Vergers, as there, rejoining after the stop-go is served, is Christoph Ulrich. Why Michael's still got his wipers on in that Porsche, discuss. But anyway, he's pressing on, but I don't think really now, looking at the way that the race is panning out, he is going to be able to get onto terms with Luca Piri. Every time he gets close, the car seems to lose ground, lose pace again. What he now needs to do, I guess, is to try and fend off any challenge coming from Anders Fjordbach in that 4th place. So the race leaders here, again up towards the Variante Ascari. There is Luca Piri turns through. Luca, another experienced driver, not just GT racing under his belt, but also the Grand Am Sports Prototypes, raced in the Euro NASCAR series. Through the traffic comes Bert Longchamp then, up the inside of Alexis Berthet's Ferrari, goes through and will be able to get certainly one more lap out of the race. A flying lap is 1:50. He might just squeeze 2, you know, by about 3 or 4 seconds. Over the line now he goes, so yeah, he'll probably do this with about 6 seconds to spare for one more lap at the end of it. 4 of them in a line now, because Fjordbach close to Vergers in the background. Michael Vergers in turn has now got to do the lap race, so he's going to lose touch a little bit with the top 2. The focus very much becoming keeping hold of that 3rd place. Ferrari number 73, as I said at the start, doesn't run to true GT2 regulations, but it's good to have it on the grid, and one hopes that Alexis Berthet and Patrick Michelier will come back with GT2 machinery when possible and remain part of this Fanatec GT2 European Series. More drivers looking at it all the time, more cars being prepared, so it'll grow and grow. Hockenheim, May 15, the next round. They're going through number 33, Anders Fjordbach. And he powers on then now up through the Lesmo Benz. 3rd is a real possibility. You can see the way. Really impressive drive this by Anders Fjordbach. Has closed and closed and closed on Michael Vergers, and he could make it an Audi 1, 2, 3, a real route for the podium. There up front, Bert Longchamp comes into the Variante Ascari. Behind him is Luca Piri. If Bert Longchamp were to just back off the pace a little, yes, he might be caught slightly by Piri, but he might be able to avoid having to do another lap. If he does do another lap, it could be great news for Fjordbach and bad news for Vergers, because that change for 3rd place is imminent, and one more lap might just secure it. Here they come, 22 seconds on the clock then, down towards the Parabolica, ready to start the last lap. Fjordbach trying to force a mistake out of Vergers by darting around in the mirrors there, trying to unsettle him a little bit as they come now through the right of the Parabolica, ready to start the last lap. The clock ticks on down. 8 seconds, 7, 6, where is the leading car? It breaks the bead with about 5 seconds to spare. Through goes Bert Longchamp. In fact, it was 6 seconds to spare, give or take. So through he has gone. Luca Piri in 2nd place, a 2.5 back, but all of a sudden, 2nd, 3rd and 4th concertina, don't they, as they come down towards the Rettifilio. We're on the last lap, and the leading 4 cars covered by 2.7 seconds. At one stage, it was well over 10 that covered the leading 4 after the pit stops. So Fjordbach catching Vergers, Vergers catching Piri. One more lap to go, and a great battle developing here. Anders Fjordbach thinking, I wish this was a full 50-minute race, not just 47, as the clock ticks and ticks and ticks, because he's running out of time, running out of options in order to get past Michael Vergers, but not for the want of trying. That is for sure, as the cars now power their way once again up into the Lesmo curves. A look to the inside by Anders Fjordbach. Michael Vergers able to close the door, but he then runs wide coming out of the 2nd Lesmo, and past him goes Anders Fjordbach. So the Audi strikes. It has always looked a more stable car around those couple of corners, but this is where the power of the Porsche kicks in, and so Michael Vergers comes back at him on the outside line and retakes the place up to the Variante Ascari. But late on the brakes is Fjordbach trying to force his way back through. Can't do it. Checkered flag is at the ready as the cars now make the run up towards the Parabolica for the last time. And it's going to be a win, seemingly, for Bert Longchamp and Peter Gellings, ahead of Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel. And then for 3rd, it's anybody's guess, because it's 3rd in Pro-Am as much as overall, and it could be Patterson or Fjordbach, and it could be the Vergers Rustica Porsche as they turn now through the corner. Checkered flag at the ready. Luca Piri is almost within striking distance of Bert Longchamp, but Bert Longchamp and Peter Gellings will win the 2nd Fanatec GT2 European Series race. 2nd, Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel, and 3rd, Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica. 4th goes to Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach, with Hans Stuck set to take a class win with Chris Rosenberger ahead of Christoph Ulrich and Adrian Speshka, and then it's going to be Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz for 3rd within the AMS. There is Hans Stuck making the run now into the Ascari chicane, and he powers on into the approach to the corner, but he has lost his class lead, has he not, on the last lap, because back ahead, by the look of it, has gone number 7. So it is going to be Christoph Ulrich ahead as he comes through. As he turns into the corner now, having been quicker in the sectors. There is Hans Stuck behind. So number 7 KTM accelerates up towards the line and is going to come through now to take the checkered flag then in 6th place overall. So as he comes across the line, Christoph Ulrich takes the class win despite the stop-go penalty, despite the longer pit stop anyway with Adrian Spechka. Hans Stuck ends up 2nd in class with Chris Rosenberger, who led the bulk of that first stint of the race. And so for 3rd, Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz at the end of another very lively race for the new GT2 European Series. So the drivers make their way on this in-lap back towards the pit lane if they are required for Parc Fermé, or if they are otherwise they'll be released to the teams in the paddock. So it has been an interesting start for the Fanatec GT2 European Series. It's a shame that we've lost a few cars over the course of the 2 races, but good racing we have had nonetheless. And Bert Langin and Peter Grelings win race 2 from Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel. Michael Vergas and Aurelius Rustica 3rd. Anders Fjordback, Mark Patterson 4th, briefly 3rd. Stefan Rossina, Sedi Salmini, despite a drive-through, take 5th ahead of Christoph Ulrich and Adrian Spechka. Hans Stuck, Chris Rosenberger 7th, and Klaus Angerhofer and Hubert Trunkenpolz 8th. Those last 3 KTMs, all of course in the AM competition, taking the top 3 places there. So the next stop for the series, Hockenheim, in a few weeks' time, middle of May, and it's going to be interesting to see when the cars get there, how the entry has grown and how also different cars have evolved with a little bit of expertise being factored in after this weekend. So we'll hear hopefully from our winning drivers very shortly. Cars making their way now down the pit road, but Bert Langin and Peter Grelings, differing levels of experience, but working very well together as a pair, coming through to score the race win. Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel taking 2nd place. Stefan, I'm sure, very happy with that after not getting behind the wheel at all yesterday. And then for 3rd place, Michael Vergas and Aurelius Rustica. Good, consistent weekend that car has had. So there, the drivers clamber out, and Bert Langin very, very happy with that. He's been a mainstay of GT paddocks for a long, long time. Good to have him back in the SRO fold. There is Stefan Rattel, who has, of course, witnessed many of Bert's races in GT cars over the years. And Bert Langin, a happy man. Luca Piri, delighted with that 2nd place. And Michael Vergas and Aurelius Rustica taking 3rd spot. So the drivers take off helmets, balaclavas, earpieces. Bert Langin there will go and thank the team in a moment. Luca Piri explained all with Mara Casadei, involved with the Pirelli SRO link, and Mara himself, the regular GT racer. So let's try and catch a word with our race winner, Bert Langin, then, winning by 0.6 of a second. He's with Gemma Scott.
Bert, as you got out the car, you almost looked like you hadn't expected that result. Fantastic, well done.
Yeah, thank you, but it's because yesterday we had an incident in the start, so yeah, we had a bit of mess up race, but then today when my teammate Peter, who is now 1.5 years in racing, when I see his first stint, I'm his coach, so I'm very happy.
Fantastic, well done, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So, as I've been saying, much differing levels of experience between Peter Grelings and Bert Langin, but a good effort by the pair of them to bring 81 through as the winning car. 0.6 of a second being that margin at flag fall, and a good effort too by Luca Piri being able to respond and get up into the mix as the race wore on. And of course, those pit stop penalties all bring an extra dimension to it, with the drivers, of course, having to either try and build a gap because they know they're going to lose ground in the pit stops, or indeed need their co-driver to try to make that up in the second stint. So we'll have the drivers, as I say, very shortly up to the presentation area. The drivers collect their trophies and then go and stand in front of the backdrop in these current times for presentations. The GT2 concept, I think, has certainly worked, and there's more to look forward to in the next few rounds. I'll have a look at the highlights just quickly. It's a shame that we lost, of course, Patrick Zamperini from pole position. Shame that David Fairbrother's car never got into the race either. But what it did give us in the early stages was this very good fight between the KTMs and Peter Grellings being crowded out onto the grass as he went down to the first corner. Got away with that, was able to battle on as the field then turned up towards the Curva Grande, with Aurelius Rustica's Porsche coming under attack. The two KTMs trading the race lead. Chris Rosenberger trying that move down to the Rogier chicane, and then a really brave effort round the outside at the Ascari chicane, put him in front, but not for long, as Chris Rosenberger challenged back on the inside line, and the two of them oh so close to contact as they wriggled their way out of the Rettifilio. Again, Christoph Ulrich's car with Adrian Speshka at the wheel through on the inside line, but both KTMs missed their braking point that time around, and Rosenberger got back into the lead as Aurelius Rustica battled with Peter Grellings, and Stefan Rattel closing right up as well in 88 Audi in 5th spot. Then a spin for Adrian Speshka. That dropped him from 2nd place down to 5th, and as the pit window opened, the cars poured through the pit road with the driver changes going on, and Stefan Rattel relaying Luca Piri. It was a shuffled order after the stops, with a slow stop for Chris Rosenberger and Hans Stuck's KTM. Michael Vergers was way out wide in the Porsche, but he regrouped and was onto the tail of Luca Piri as the cars battled their way onto the last couple of laps. Anders Fjordbach had got the fastest lap, briefly relieved Michael Vergers of 3rd place, but then lost out on the run to the next corner. And so at the checkered flag, Bert Langin and Peter Grellings the winners by just 0.6 of a second in this second GT2 European Series race. They're the drivers in the holding area, as it were, the pen for the trophies. The circuit is about to be given over to hordes of Lamborghinis ready for the second Super Trofeo race of the season. And there, Bert Langin congratulating Luca Piri. And Michael Vergers and Aurelius Rustica step forward. 3rd in the Pro-Am competition, the Porsche drivers. So Michael Vergers then in the grey overalls, Aurelius Rustica in the black overalls standing alongside him. And 3rd in Pro-Am in this GT2 European Series for the Dutch-Lithuanian combination. There for 2nd place, Luca Piri and Stefan Rattel making their way to the presentation backdrop. So Stefan with his SRO mask on, the red and black colours, and Luca Piri stands alongside him. By pure fluke, they discovered they were neighbours in Italy and have become firm friends since, and have been racing on the sims together, now in the real world, sharing this car. There are the race winners then, Peter Grellings and Bert Langin making their way to the presentation backdrop. The taller frame is that of Peter. Come on, Bert, he says, come stand here. And the overall race winners celebrate victory at Monza in this GT2 European Series. Next stop, Hockenheim. More action to come during the season. For now, from Monza, from David Addison, goodbye.